Inconceivable! You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Welcome back to the Backwards History Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Will, here with my co-host, Kevin. Say hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
Shut up, Kevin.
But what about the Constitution?
Constitution? But it's common sense to restrict certain things that are in the Constitution.
I don't think it is.
But I want to restrict you.
I don't think you can do that.
But I want to because it's common sense.
Yeah, that's a strong word.
Right. Common sense is a superpower in this day and age. But before we get into what we're actually talking about, first thing we want to do is say thank you so much to our national and international, domestic and foreign listeners of the podcast, because without you, we would not have made it to the finalist slate of the People's Choice Podcast Awards.
Much love, y'all.
Thank you so much. That means the world to us because we entered last year when we barely had
10 episodes.
Right. The criteria to even meet the base level. And this year we were in the slate. That's a milestone enough without even winning.
Oh, yeah.
But we certainly do want to win. But
no doubt.
It is out of all of our hands now.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you all for getting us to where we are at the moment. And we will certainly let y'all know how that comes out. And also, we want you to all go do those social media thingy things, like I always tell you at the beginning of every episode. And don't forget about Mike Ramsey Music. Without Mike Ramsey Music, we wouldn't have got this far either. So go check him out on Facebook, Twitter, and everything else. And he also launched a new thing called Lawn Friends. Go check it out. And don't forget, we have t-shirts, masks, hoodies, all kinds of fun stuff at teespring.com/stores/backwards-history-store. Go pick you up a t-shirt, go show your support for your favorite podcasters, and help us out a little bit. Maybe we can grow the show to be a little bit more what you're looking for, give you a little bit better content. Who knows? So, I'm sure some of you understand where we were going with the common sense quips at the beginning. Apparently, Chicago is a place of much idiocy, in my opinion.
Contradiction.
And contradictions. Very much so. Kevin's got one he wants to discuss first, and then I'll get into the one I want to discuss. From my understanding, there's a history teacher.
Former history teacher.
Oh, former history teacher in Chicago.
He's a representative now.
That wants to remove history altogether from the curriculum of Chicago schools.
No, the whole state.
Oh, the whole state.
And the entire state of Illinois.
Okay, Illinois has lost its mind, not just Chicago. It's not entirely surprising, but I think I'll let Kevin take the reins here.
Thank you, Will. I had a friend of mine send me a video earlier this week of Representative LaShawn Ford at a press conference, literally calling for the abolishment of the history curriculum in his state school system. And before I jump to conclusions and maybe I'm reading the headline or the tag wrong or something, maybe just let me hear what this gentleman has to say. So I watched the video in its entirety. I actually watched it a couple of times because I wanted to make sure I understood exactly what he was trying to say, to try to get across. Apparently, history is making, and these are his words, not mine, videos online. History being taught is making people racist and instilling white privilege in white students.
If white privilege existed, wouldn't it have already existed before it was taught?
You would think so.
Really?
Anyway, this is one of those where, everybody's got a conspiracy buddy or two.
Hi, that's me.
That's him. Earlier in the year, when they started, the movements to remove statues, change flags, take guns away from animated characters, that whole thing. People were like, well, they're going to start trying to change history now.
I'm sorry. When you said that whole, comma delineated list you just gave us.
Mhm.
Da 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 da, and then take guns away from animated characters. Like if anybody said something like, "Oh, what's 2020 like?" From like if you were talking to somebody in the past, and you're like, "Well, so and so," and they take guns from animated characters, somebody would probably look at you like you're crazy.
Just a little bit.
2020 has been nuts.
And we're only just now over halfway through.
I can't believe we're over halfway through. This has been a long year.
It has. This has been the longest half year of my life.
No kidding.
But anyway, we all have that conspiracy buddy. Hi, Will. That when
We already did that.
I know, just recapping,
Redundancy.
perhaps. When it all and people are like, no, we're not going to change history. We're trying to, make sure that we protect people's feelings who are oppressed and all this and that. And you're right, they're not trying to change history. They're trying to completely erase it. Which, if you haven't already, go check out 1984, not the Wonder Woman movie.
Even though Gail Gadot or however we discussed her pronunciation of her name in the previous episode, she is awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
Just take that as you will.
This is one of the things of, what Orwell was trying to tell us is we're going to change the way it won't change at all, but to change history because you say it creates racism and instills white privilege in the young student. I listened and I was like, you're not giving me any supporting evidence. You're not telling me how. You're not telling me any kind of alternative to your plan, which is just to get rid of history until we find a more suitable replacement, air quotes, for those of you who know us. You're saying there's a problem with history being taught and that it needs to be removed, but you're giving no indication of how you're going to fix it. And you're saying that this is a problem, but you yourself taught history. Did you, at that point in your career, were you like okay with the curriculum being taught? Because this is kind of new to me. If you continue to watch the video, he goes on to make an even bolder claim that they're going to. He blamed the textbook publishers. And, anyone who's listened to the podcast before knows I don't always agree with history textbook publishers. They leave a lot of key details out, and they don't always do a fantastic job. But
we definitely feel that way.
Oh, yeah. He was going to get them to refund the state for all the textbooks they had bought over the years because the textbooks was the material that was teaching racism and white privilege. The thing that, I really want, to hear from on this is, how do the history teachers in the state of Illinois feel about his comment?
If you're a history teacher in the state of Illinois, or a teacher in general, and you've got something on this, please email us at the Backwards History Podcast, just Backwards History Podcast at gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Because it's not so much when it comes to teaching history what's in the book, but how the teacher presents it and how it's explained. You got to have the context. You can't just say, on this day, so-and-so did this. I need a little more than that. Yeah, one of the key components of studying history is learning critical thinking. If you study history and you, like we said many times before, if you don't have the ability to, take off that modern lens and study the material for what it is, you're constantly going to be putting 21st century viewpoints into stuff that happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And
so you'll definitely misunderstand something.
Right. And, society changes and evolves over time. What's acceptable now isn't always acceptable then, and vice versa. So applying today's morals to situations that happened in the past, you're always going to come up with conflicts and you're never going to understand what you studied.
Speaking of not understanding what you study, as far as I'm aware, every public official puts their hand on the Bible or the Quran or the Torah or whatever the
religious text, appropriate.
or no text at all, a book of law, so to speak, and swear an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. And it'll be different verbiage depending on the public office.
Fair point.
But it's to uphold and defend the Constitution. That's a pretty standard portion of any public oath of office. All the way from the mailman to the president. And that's no BS. All the way from the mailman to the president.
All the way.
Why is it that we see the most public examples of a either complete misunderstanding of the Constitution as it is, and it has been for a long time, or a complete ignorance of the Constitution, or complete disdain or intentionally going against the Constitution by those very public officials that swear to uphold it?
Like it's almost getting in the way.
Maybe it's doing what it's supposed to do.
So it's working.
Or exactly. Case in point, since we're talking about Illinois, and I was talking about Chicago, but apparently that dude was talking about the whole state.
The whole state.
Mayor Lightfoot of Chicago has been getting a lot of flack lately about, backing Black Lives Matter movement and things of that nature, but only in the fashion of Black Lives Matter when killed by either a white person or at least a white uniformed person. But conveniently, Black lives don't matter when they're killed by gang members. And that's a point of contention for many people.
Many people.
Because if Black lives matter, all of the Black lives matter. Whether killed by, a leprechaun or anybody, right? One-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater. Black lives matter.
Haven't heard that one in a while.
Right. I just pulled that out of my butt. But Mayor Lightfoot rejected President Trump's, I don't know if offer is the correct term, but suggestion to have federal agents come into Chicago and really take on the gang violence that goes on in Chicago on a regular basis, ridiculously regular basis, having some of the worst death tolls continually, week after week.
It's pretty bad.
And she rejected it on the basis of the potential for constitutional violations because of the presence of these federal agents. And in the same press conference, not 30 seconds after making that statement, says that the reason for the gun violence in Chicago was because of other states that were not as restrictive as Illinois selling assault rifles and military style weapons and and then being a proponent of banning the purchase and sale of said assault weapons. So in one breath, I don't want federal agents in Chicago because of constitutional violations, but I want to violate the constitutional rights of the American people by banning their purchase of a legal weapon. What?
Dun dun dun.
What? I really want this woman to hear her own words and realize the oxymoron that you really just presented.
I always like when they go for the term military style weapon. What exactly does that mean?
Please, name one military that is using a semi-automatic rifle in a war zone as their standard issue rifle. I'll wait.
It's one of those key buzzwords, military style weapon, and must be a very dangerous, very, high powered, lethal.
When in actuality, the AR-15 fires a glorified .22 round.
Keyword glorify.
Exactly. It's absolutely ridiculous. It drives me absolutely insane to hear these people try and champion the constitutional rights of people, or they like to say
Civil liberty.
civil liberties, not paying attention to the fact that their civil liberties are their constitutional rights. They are one and the same.
Right.
But they'll be champions of constitutional rights in one breath and literally be anti-constitutional rights in the next breath. And they don't even realize how stupid they sound. But even worse than that, they can sound as stupid as they want. And they've got supporters. You know, they're one person with one brain, one mouth, and they can think one way and speak one way. But then they have several supporters with multiple brains, and the light bulbs don't come on in these people, and that's what drives me absolutely insane.
That think for yourself mentality is long gone.
Think what you're told to think, like we talked about in our last episode with media manipulation. It's absolutely asinine.
It's maddening.
It drives me crazy and makes me so thankful I live in the South, which some of our southern states are being taken over with policies like that because people leave the areas that are wrought with policies that destroy that area, and they look for a better situation somewhere else, and then they get to that new place and they vote for the same stupid policies that ruin the place they just left, and then get surprised when stuff gets bad where they just moved.
It's a vicious cycle.
It's like Texas is dealing with a lot of people fleeing from California's restrictive laws in a lot of aspects, not just guns. But then they go to places like Houston and Dallas and Austin, and they vote for the same policies that ruined California. And they're getting surprised that those three places in Texas are getting just as bad as it was in California. Insanity.
Absolutely.
Is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result.
Sad.
Ridiculous. Annoying. Especially for those of us that consider ourselves libertarians. But I digress. It should annoy anyone who considers themselves an American. Not libertarian, not Republican, not Democrat, not
independent.
Whatever you want to call yourself. It shouldn't just annoy libertarians. Shouldn't just annoy conservatives, considering this is a gun subject. Republicans would be upset about it too. But if you consider yourself an American and you are the proponent for the restriction of any constitutional right or civil liberty, whatever you want to call it, you, by the opinion of this podcast, are an idiot. Because the attack on one person's freedoms and liberties is attack on everyone's freedoms and liberties. If you can take one and restrict one, you can take another and restrict another. Today it's guns. Tomorrow it will be your free speech. The next day it will be your freedom of religion. The next day it will be your freedom to not have a military member housed in your home or a law enforcement officer housed in your home.
I saw today where the New York Attorney General is suing the NRA, trying to get them to disband over allegations of using company funds for personal use. I believe the NRA president or chairman, whoever, he tweeted out, "We've done nothing wrong. Essentially, bring it on."
Not gonna lie though, I was never a fan of LaPierre.
Oh no, but it's just one of those things of I get letters all the time to join the NRA, and I just don't want to.
I was an NRA member. I was gifted a membership several years ago. I never did renew it. I'm okay with having the legal protections of being an NRA member.
Absolutely. Those do seem really nice.
But there's several other companies that will give concealed carriers and everything else carry insurance and things of that nature, like the USCCA.
I've been seeing a lot of their ads lately.
And I definitely encourage anyone who carries a weapon to be a member of at least one of those entities to protect themselves legally should they ever have to use their weapon. But I personally would not join the NRA.
It's become just too political.
I don't believe in their brand of politics, mainly because it's our rights on a bargaining chip that you can take a piece off and go, okay, here, you can have this one, but we'll keep the rest of them.
Right. Like I said, it's become too politicized.
Yeah. And LaPierre just annoys the mess out of me. I got emails, quote unquote, air quotes, from him when I was a member, even though I know that they were all some auto-generated junk.
His name was just at the bottom.
Right. I've seen his speeches and things like that, and he kind of just annoyed me, and I don't really have a solid reason why, but he just did.
I got you.
So I'm not saying here nor there whether I believe the NRA did anything wrong or not. They certainly have enough lawyers in their back pocket to get to sweep this under the rug, as it were. But as always, we're not experts. We're just two dudes that talk on a microphone that you guys apparently like, and hopefully we win a People's Choice Podcast Award.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
But as always, we don't want you to take us as experts. We don't want you to take anything we say as fact. We want you to do your own research, form your own opinions, trust, but verify.